Hello, this is Bradley Smith with Vigilix. We greatly appreciate everyone's time for the webinar today. Because we have such a large number of attendees, you will be muted to prevent background noise. For privacy, we've also blocked the names of other participants. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please notify me via the chat box in the console that's part of the GoToWebinar. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, but please feel free as we're going along, if you have questions, to submit them via the question box that is part of the console, and again, we will address them at the end of the presentation. Also, just to mention, we are recording today's webinar, and we will be distributing the link to this once we have it posted and available to the public. So I'd like to, again, launch the presentation today, the 5 ways to increase POS support capacity for ISVs. Our presenters today are Andrew Kurtz, the president of Vigilix, and Damian Graham, director of support services for Squirrel Systems. And with that, Andy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Bradley. And I want to thank everyone for taking some time out of your day to join us. As the title says, we want to talk about ways to increase POS support capacity for ISVs. We did a very similar presentation that was focused on the dealer network recently, but there are some very subtle differences, we think, but important differences for ISVs to keep in mind. And we'll be pointing those out as we go through this. So the very first thing that I wanted to talk about was, why are we even the right group to talk about this subject? What makes Vigilix experts in this area? So just a little bit of background on us. We've been developing hosted solutions for over a decade. We have been building remote monitoring and management solutions during that entire time, and really for the last 7 years, we have been solely focused on the point-of-sale industry. We've worked with ISVs and dealers, and we know this space. We understand this space. We understand the challenges, and we've worked with people to help solve problems around remote monitoring and management. Some of the ideas were well proven before we even implemented them with different organizations. Some were experimental, some worked great, some didn't, and so we think we have a lot of information to share, and this is just one of the topics that we wanted to share our experience and our knowledge with you about. So, what are we going to actually be talking about today? The presentation itself, you'll notice, was talking about 5 different ways to support or to increase support capacity, but we're going to take a little bit of time and we're going to look at some of the variables that drive that support capacity, the things we think you should be focusing on. We want to take a little bit of time with a what-if calculator to just look at if you make changes within your organization and within your support organization, what impact could it have? And then we're going to look at our top 5 recommendations, as it's noted on the slide. Yep, we have more. There's a lot of different things that can be done, but we do believe in focusing on a very core group, starting small and expanding from there. And we always preach that to folks. So we're going to tackle 5 of what we think are the big hitters today. We're going to provide a built-in demo. We're just going to show you that there are tools out there to do this. This is not just talk, that this can be done and implemented within an organization, and there are tools to support implementing it within an organization that are out there and available today. We're going to hear from Damian, who's figured this out, somebody that we've worked with for a while, who has brought a lot of creativity and a lot of great ideas and great successes to the story that we're going to tell today. We're going to let Damian explain that. And finally, we'll discuss the different steps that you can take right now. So as I mentioned, 3 variables to consider. We're talking about 5 things you can do, but we really believe that there are only 3 variables to really focus on when it comes to improving and expanding your efficiency. And when we talk about expanding efficiency, let's make sure we're all in agreement about what that means. It doesn't mean adding people. That's not scalable. What we're talking about is taking the team that you have and making that team more efficient and capable of delivering more support, so increasing the capacity of an existing team. And we think that there are really only 3 variables that can dramatically move that number. Those are, and this first one I know is really obvious, get less calls. If you get less calls, the same number of people can handle more calls. Another way, though, is to solve issues faster. Once again, probably fairly obvious, but if you get the same volume of calls, but you solve them faster, obviously you increase your capacity. And then one that's maybe not quite as obvious is spreading the calls out more evenly. A lot of times organizations have to actually staff for a peak level of calls that might occur at some point during the day. And if you have the ability to lower that peak, then you and take some of those things that would come in at a peak time and spread them out a little more evenly, your team is capable of delivering more support and better customer satisfaction. So those are the 3 variables we want you to focus on. Even as we talk about the different tactics, we want you to focus on these specific variables, what I'd like really kind of high-level strategies. So we're going to take a quick look at how moving these variables can have an impact on your organization. And one of the key things I want to make sure of before we go into this is don't get hung up on the numbers that I'm going to be presenting here themselves, because there's one thing I can absolutely promise you, and that's that your numbers aren't the same as these numbers. These numbers were created, they're based on some conversations with folks, but they were put into this spreadsheet or into this calculator to be able to demonstrate the impact that moving these variables can have. So you can request the calculator later and use your own numbers. For right now, focus less on the numbers themselves and focus on the impact that changing them has. So, looking at what we have in here right now, this was our original assumption. This is our organization today. There's 14 hours in a day that we have to deliver support, breakfast through dinner. We have 5 full-time reps who are staffing our help desk during that time. During non-peak hours, the average call takes 10 minutes, or actually, regardless of when, the average call takes 10 minutes. During non-peak hours, the number of calls we get is 26 calls per hour. However, there are 2 peak windows is what we're making an assumption of. Let's say that those peaks are breakfast and dinner time. And each of those peaks is 2 hours during the, I'm sorry, probably better to say it's lunch. Let's say it's lunch and dinner. Peak 1 is lunch, 2-hour window of time. When we're going to get a higher volume of calls, we're going to average 42 calls per hour during that window of time. The next period, dinner time, is also a 2-hour window where we're going to have an increase in the number of calls, but those calls, it's not as high as 42. We've taken care of some of the issues, but it does spike up to 38. So those numbers were not picked just randomly. You'll notice that the total service calls per day that we're going to get is 420, and the capacity of our team is also 420, and that's based on the fact that this team of 5 working this window of time and calls that take 10 minutes, that's how many they can handle. So looking at how many reps we need for that, we need 4 support people for just the average volume. So we're actually overstaffed during the average volume periods, but we're understaffed during the 2 peaks. So the challenge is, in that scenario, is during the peaks, we're going to end up having longer wait times, we're going to have to prioritize, and the ability to deliver good customer satisfaction is impacted, and yet we have capacity during the non-peak times. So just imagine with me, and let's take a peek. So the question is, what if we could reduce the number of calls by 10%? So we're not going to change anything else, but the number of calls that we're going to get in is simply going to get lowered by 10%. So what happens? Well, we didn't really change. You'll notice we do have increased capacity. I mean, that's very obvious. I said it at the beginning. You reduce the number of calls, you're going to increase capacity. We didn't change the number of reps that we need during average volume, but we did impact the number of reps needed during the peak. We lowered that. We'll be able to deliver better customer satisfaction and tackle more of the issues during that peak window of time. So that's one variable. That's simply the number of calls that come in. So let's play another what if. What if we could reduce the duration of calls by 10%? So instead of 10-minute calls, they're 9-minute calls. Well, we didn't change the number of calls we're getting in, but we increased how many calls we can take. So our call capacity went up. Once again, we didn't impact the number of reps needed during average times, but we definitely impacted the number of reps needed during those peaks. We lowered that, and once again, it's about customer satisfaction in that scenario. The other variable is, what if we could smooth out and not have as many calls during the peak, and you take advantage of some of the more idle time? So let's simply shift a little bit of that time around. Same number of calls, 420 calls, but we now need the number of reps that we have during the entire day. We are using them, and they're fully utilized through the whole day. The peaks have once again come down, so we've basically been able to improve customer satisfaction and improve utilization of our team. So each of those variables individually can have an impact, but the real power comes when you can when you get the cumulative effect of moving all of those variables. And we think the tactics we're going to talk about today can help make that possible. So let's go back and play what if. What if we were able to lower the peak? What if at the same time we were able to lower the number of calls, the peak, and the duration? So we're going to get less calls. We're going to spread them out a little more evenly. Once again, not major changes, 10% reduction in calls, 10% reduction in duration of calls, and just simply spread out more evenly. And now is where we have the major effect. Now you start to see a true impact on the ability and the capacity of a team, the ability to deliver more support with the same team. We're going to get less calls during the day. We need less reps during the average times, simply because we've reduced volume and we've started to tackle these issues faster. We've also lowered the peak, and our full team can handle the worst peak during the day that we see. So cumulatively, impacting these three variables can have a dramatic effect on the efficiency and the capacity of a support team. So that's why we think it's really important to focus on these three items. So, jumping into the recommendations. Like I said before, there's a lot of them. We consider these kind of the tactics, the ways to use a tool, and the ways to take advantage of products like Vigilix. There are definitely more, but these are really big hit, big impact items. And so the five, and we'll dive into each of them separately, are to automate level 1 fixes, to reduce the routine help desks, to know more details, to solve the big problems before they happen, and to try to schedule the non-urgent calls. And I want to dive into each of these separately. So, automate level 1 fixes. What do we mean when we say that? Well, to me, a level 1 fix, first of all, has to be something that you're comfortable telling somebody who really may not know a lot about the problem. It's okay if you get this, if this call comes in, or if this is the issue that's reported, it's okay to try this. You don't want to do something that necessarily requires a lot of analysis, although I think there are, and I'll mention a way that that's possible and we've seen done. So good examples of that. First of all, this has a major impact. It can lower the number of calls that come in simply because some issues are going to get fixed automatically. It can also help shorten the amount of time for a call because you know some of the things that have already been tried. If there is a service that needs to be running, it's stopped, and there's an automated response to try to start it, then the time doesn't need to be put into analyzing and trying to start it. It's a more complicated problem than that, and so you can help shorten the amount of time needed to be spent on a call because you've already tackled the obvious level 1 issues. So what are some good examples of this? Restarting a service to me is one of the absolute most obvious ones. Sometimes killing and restarting a foreground process itself. We don't see those quite as often as we used to, but that may be one. Calling a stored procedure or running a SQL script might be something. Maybe credit card batching. A credit card batching issue has been detected, and you want to be able to. There's a SQL script that will run that will cause it to try to resettle before somebody has to come in. And then there's always running a batch file, and this is where I think it can get more creative. And this is one of those areas where an experienced support team member can build a batch file that does do a little bit more analysis and maybe makes some decisions and runs a little more complex automated fix. So a really simple example of that we've seen folks do is build a batch file that goes through and tries to figure out some disk cleanup. What can I safely clean up? What files, backup files, what directories can I safely look at, and run that, and it's going to attempt to clean up in response to a low disk space issue, attempt to do a cleanup. So I think that's a good example of one where an automated level 1 fix can work. So once again, it's not something that it doesn't apply to every call, and when I say call, just to be very clear, I don't mean always a phone call. It's really more a ticket or an issue that a support person's addressing. So I'm using those words a little synonymously. The call could come from a customer. It could come from a system telling you that there's a problem, but it's really when a support person is reacting. So automated level 1 fixes are a great way to try to reduce the amount of the number of calls and the amount of time needed to address issues that are brought to the support team's attention. I guess one other thing I do want to mention on the automated level 1 fixes is we want folks to know, because of our experience, we're here to try to help figure out what could be a level 1 automated fix. So we've seen situations where we can help if we become engaged with somebody based on our previous experiences of just solving these problems, that we can help figure out, well, what are the traces, what level 1 fixes could we put in place? And sometimes we can enhance the product, and in fact frequently we'll enhance our product to be able to provide more level 1 fixes. So I encourage everyone to keep that in mind. We're here to be a partner in those types of scenarios. And I know we've done that with folks like Damien, as a matter of fact, where he's brought challenging issues to us and we've tried to collectively address those. So another tactic, the second one, is reducing routine help requests. And once again, this is a way to lower the number of calls that are coming in, and it's a very simple tactic. The idea here, it's a little bit ironic, I think. The idea here is to let your customer know that you detected a problem and to give them the information how they can fix it. So you're actually asking your customer to address a problem that historically maybe they would call about and would generate a call. And you're automatically sending that to them. Now, I say that's ironic because you're telling the customer something wrong and how to fix it, but they perceive that as you being proactive. It's very important to make sure that they know, hey, listen, if you can't solve this, call us. We're here to help, but we're trying to let you know about something early on. So this is, I mean, I think it's a great tactic, a way to take some of the things that an end user can can truly solve, that they know how. Credit card batching might be one. Disk space might be one. Hey, a recommended reboot is one that we've seen a lot of. Just, hey, we've seen the system's been up for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and we just know it would be great if you could find time in the next week to reboot the system, and that will help alleviate potential issues down the road. Simply putting that in front of your customers can help address issues, lower call volume, and make you look, in their eyes, more proactive. I think a really important one is simply knowing more faster. Knowing what's the current state of the system, what version of OS is out there, what version of the point-of-sale product is out there, what's changed recently. Has there been any new hot fixes applied? Has there been any changes in services that are running? The whole goal is to have more information in front of you immediately, so that you don't have to sit and try to extract that information from the end user. I've seen it over and over again where if you ask somebody what changed, the answer is nothing. Well, a tool like Vigilix can be showing you, well, no, this is what changed, and you don't even have to ask that particular question. So it can help you dive in and know what to do. Sometimes based on an event, hey, we've detected this, and by the way, here are the things you should do. Here are the steps to take to address this, and help all that around trying to lower the duration of time it takes to solve calls. So that's the third tactic that we think is important. The fourth one is solving big problems before they happen. So putting out the big fire by dousing the spark. And there are lots of different examples of this. I think the ones that we want to talk about today, that are just some of the more obvious ones that we've seen, are disk space. Disk space is getting low. That is certainly not a high priority when it's caught early. It's not something that has to be stop everything, go fix the low disk space. When it gets to that point, it's too late. And to be honest with you, you're probably not getting a phone call from an end user saying, "Hey, we're out of disk space." What you're probably getting is a call from an end user saying, "Really strange things are happening, and I have no idea what's going on." And it takes a while to get to the point where you realize you're out of disk space, thus driving up the time it takes to solve that call. When in reality, that can be something that somebody can, during more idle time, can simply go in and address. So this is a good example of one of those areas where, if you know about disk space, you can lower time of calls by addressing it when it's small, and at the same time try to schedule it. So backups don't take place. If a backup's not occurring, one thing I've always said, I guarantee the site that will have a problem is the site that's not backing up. That's Murphy. So how long does it take to rebuild a system if you don't have a good backup? So knowing about that backups aren't occurring and addressing that and fixing it so that good backups exist can help avoid a future problem. And then the hard drive going bad. So we've got monitoring capabilities, and we've had to work with folks sometimes to get creative on how to figure out things where a drive might be going bad or a RAID might be degraded and we're running on one leg. So, but it's so much simpler to schedule replacing a hard drive than it is to deal with a dead hard drive or a dead RAID array. So solving those big problems before they happen can have a huge impact. And finally, the fifth one is to schedule non-urgent issues. And I touched on this real briefly in the previous one when I talked about disk space. Actually, a lot of those. Solving big problems before they happen. These two will really go hand in hand, because when it's a small problem, it's usually not something that is a super critical emergency. And therefore, you have the ability to say, I'm going to address these issues when the team isn't as busy, when there's some idle time. Maybe first thing in the morning. Hey, first thing in the morning, I'm going to come in and I'm going to solve all the high priority issues that are going to result in calls. The system told us about these issues. We know we're going to get phone calls on these, so why don't we just take care of them first thing in the morning? But then there's the opportunity to move on to the lower level issues, the non-high priority issues that are the don't solve it today, or I'm not putting out a problem that the customer would see today, but I'm helping avoid a problem in the future. So one real key thing that we always recommend, though, is make sure the team or there is some kind of feedback mechanism to let the customer know that you are addressing issues that even if they don't call. There needs to be some way to let them know that you are out there providing that value, even if they didn't initiate a call. That might be that the team calls back just to say, hey, we fixed this, want to make sure you know we did that, and make sure that everything looks okay from your end. Might be a report that they get, might be something where it's built into a ticketing system, automatically sent to them, whether they initiated it or not. Whatever that is, you need to provide that feedback, or the customer doesn't appreciate the value of it. So with that, I want to turn it over to Damien so he can tell you a little bit about his story and their successes. So Damien, to you.
Thanks, Andy, and thanks, everyone. Yeah, just wanted to take a bit of time here and have a quick chat with everyone there, just with regard to how we got to looking for a proactive solution, how we got to choosing Vigilix, what it's done for us, and what value we're seeing from it. I'll talk a little bit about Squirrel to begin with. Squirrel is a point-of-sale provider. We've been founded in 1984. We're based in Canada, in Vancouver, BC. We really see ourselves as an innovator. We were the first to introduce the touchscreen technology into the point-of-sale space back in 1984. We were first with integrated credit card payments, first to offer 24/7 help desk, et cetera. So we've got a lot of firsts under our belt in our story. And we've got clients installed worldwide, and as the slide says, we're sold direct through resellers, and so we're sold through direct and through resellers. We service a number of markets: table service, fast casual, lodging, nightclub, bar, cafeteria, sports recreation, that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about our company, and our help desk here is located in Vancouver, and we, as I say, service globally, primarily in the North American market, but we do handle all our requests. The buck stops here. That's a little thing about Squirrel. So the excuse me. I think it's the next slide here. Right, there we go. The leg before Vigilix. We were taking a strong look at what our customers' pain points were, and we're looking for solutions. We realized early on that we were definitely a reactive organization with regard to our support practice, and the perception of our service quality was being called into question. Users' expectations were increasing, and we were really looking to see what could we do to improve the quality of our support offering, and also take care of our customer pain points, the big issues we wanted to attack first. A lot of our folks, myself included, all came from the point-of-sale industry or the restaurant industry, so we're familiar with what those things were, and that was a focus on what we had and what we wanted to look at. And as I say, the challenge was it was obvious we were reactive, and we needed to flip that. Some of the key learnings from the past. We had a wealth of great data on what our customers were calling in about. We quickly realized that we needed to change this reactive model to become much more proactive. And as I said, we needed to improve the quality of the support offering. This was a real driver for us, and a conscious effort was made to identify what we needed to do to get there. So as I say, we started looking at what could immediately be acted upon and what will we need to achieve this. Remote monitoring was actually a massive part and a no-brainer with regard to becoming proactive, and so we searched down that road. So why do we go Vigilix? Well, Vigilix, dedicated to the point-of-sale industry, was obviously a great point right off the bat. They understood what our challenges were and were very familiar with it. A lot of different options we had there that were already in place that the Vigilix team were doing: monitoring, alerting, off-site backups, and of course the PCI compliance was a huge factor for us, because that was obviously a big concern for a lot of our customers, especially with so many restaurants had taken credit card and integrated credit card systems. And we got a real good feel from the passion and excellence that drive that Andy and his team had, that we hold in very high regard here, and it's a big part of our culture. The next thing, once we had identified, was how do we move, what do we need to do first? Obviously, we didn't want any disruption to our customer. We wanted to prove the concept and make sure that we were tight before any rollouts happened. So the first thing we looked at was setting up a in-house bench test, just to prove that our expectations on what way this would work and how it would benefit and what our thoughts were on how this would operate were actually true. And indeed they were with the bench test. We found very quickly there wasn't much in the way of major changes with the solution. We were kind of hit the ground running, which was nice. The next stage was for us to roll out to a cross-section of our customers. As I said, we deal with a lot of different segments, 24-hour operations and not so much and that sort of thing. So we wanted to get a cross-section and just do some test cases, slow roll out, very cautious approach. Again, delighted to report that they all went very well, and we were very pleased with it. So the next stage was just to build it into our actual install package and make it standard part of our automated install, and systematically deployed it to all our legacy sites. So we had a bit of catch-up period. We had a number of customers on older versions, so we wanted to get an end date, if you will. So that's why we did to the current install package on all versions. And then we just played catch-up for all of those legacy customers that were on the support contract. And on the support contract piece, there was a slight increase. We did introduce, it timed well with a repricing structure that we were looking at. And it was also started as a real value add, a next generation to our support offering, which is the primary focus for why we even went down this road. So everything kind of rolled out of the box well, and we got up and running quite quickly. There was a bit of time playing catch up with the legacy stuff, but as I say, the nice thing was that once it was done, it just went swimmingly. So we've now incorporated, we've completed that catch up, and this is my new customers coming on site all the time. So one of the things, how we use Vigilix, well, we've got key network systems. As I said, we had a great wealth of customer data that we were looking at, and we were looking for those major pain points, and we identified what they were. Obviously, system or business critical situations were of paramount importance. And we were looking to see what could we do to minimize the impact, the negative impact on our customers, and really showcase that value add. So obviously, a monitoring of those critical services, directly firing an alert into our support queue at the correct priority, and reacting to those right away. We had other disaster scenarios that we'd seen that really ended up in a reflecting squirrel in a poor way, even though it's technology and life happens. But we looked at some of the things Andy talked to earlier there, where the hard drives going bad. Typically when it's upon you, it's a disaster scenario. We are getting ahead of those now. We're getting alerted of those, and we're getting in. And our customers and our corporate clients are seeing the real value there, but we're alerting them saying, hey, you've got a hard drive that's about to go there. You may want to act on that, or we're working with you to act on it. Backup failures was another huge one. A lot of the times when you did have a disaster scenario, that's when you realize that somebody at the site for the last 6 months had been clicking OK on the backup didn't happen warning. So we started monitoring that, and again, getting proactive. We want to get ahead of that and notify you that your backups are failing for one reason or another, and get in and repair that. That was another huge one. And then just general monitoring and observation of certain other systems that usually end up in a system critical situation. We wanted to, as I say, the alerts were configured to directly hit into our queue, and that was another nice and seamless process to get that working. I think we had that up and running in about 2 weeks with testing and that. And then backing up data, obviously, to the cloud. That is a huge part for us, especially in those disaster scenarios. We're seeing a lot of customers, they like that idea, they're coming online with it. And one of the added bonuses of that is we also spent a lot of time chasing down customers to get information to try and investigate situations that were coming up. And there was a real impact on the resolution time between trying to contact somebody, getting connected in their system, pulling the data over, then looking at it, then getting the information down if we needed to talk to developers about it and that sort of thing. And the real challenge we had was that the amount of time that we had or spent just going to get the data. So one of the things that we're utilizing here is that our customers' data is up in the cloud, and we're adding certain files and folders that we would need for troubleshooting there. So we're looking to eliminate that whole chasing a customer down to get that data that we need to investigate an issue. We have it sitting there, and we can get right to work once it's been reported to us, which is a nice add. And just the last point here coming next is self-healing. So our thinking in the next generation here, in the next development on this area is that it's great that we have been notified that an issue has happened. However, we're going to get the agent going to work on the computer, our customer's computer. We're going to get it to correct the issue and then notify us at the same time that it is indeed happening. We're looking at a number of test case scenarios where the user experience, we want to see what the user experience is. But just having that ability, I think, is going to be a huge factor, and we're anticipating call volume reductions as a result of that, which is another focus for us right now. So, again, as it states here, supports our overall business value proposition. It solved that problem we had, or that challenge and that want that we needed to increase our service offering. The sales guys are definitely coming back to us, telling us that this is a real value add. People like the sound of it. Our customers like the sound of it. We can point to real world examples. We've got customers down the street that's on a different, or on a squirrel point of sale for you. You can ask them, you can call up, you can tell, and they're telling good stories about, yeah, those guys called me up, I didn't even know something was wrong, and they were already on the phone, which is a nice wow factor, and really worked well for us. The proactive need that we had has been met. It gives us complete visibility into the service history. One of the things that we did as well, we had our CRM database had information in there that maybe wasn't updated for one reason or another. A reseller didn't inform us of this change in hard drive or a PC or the specs on a computer or whatever. One of the things we did was that we implemented a data collection piece where the Vigilix agent is reporting back to us certain pertinent information on networking, IP schemes, that sort of thing. And that's going directly into our CRM database. And so the agents, when they're dealing with the customers, they have real-time data in front of them, so they're actually becoming a lot more accurate as opposed to making decisions on outdated data. One of the nice things we did see was the resolution time. We tailored the alerts coming into the support queue with instruction to the agents, not only on exactly what had just occurred, but what they do as well. So we saw a reduction in training time, getting new agents up to speed. All they had to do was follow instruction. And more importantly, we saw a reduction in the resolution time, which has had a huge impact for our customers. There's no need, like Andy said, for the 20 questions. We've got busy restaurant managers that are running the floor, running a staff team there, looking after guests. We already know what it is that went wrong, and we get straight to work on it. And that really was what drove down that resolution time by a large percentage. And again, as I said, it ensures our profitability. It's a real value add for our support sales team who are selling the contracts, and that they've seen an increase. It's a nice wow factor. So those initial challenges we had and we wanted to change, we've definitely achieved those in that regard. So a couple of the other things, like I said, this started off as a change to a way we do business, and we've actually seen, as we've gone through the situation and worked through our challenges and implemented a lot of new ideas and a lot of things coming up that we never thought of, and some surprises with regard to the outcomes and the expectations. For example, one of my fears was that we were going to get flooded, our queue was going to get flooded with a load of issues that we typically wouldn't have heard of. And it was a valid fear, but the reality was there wasn't as many as I thought. Our customers did phone up. We really saw a benefit in getting ahead of those disaster scenarios, so we're seeing a reduction in those. We're also seeing a reduction in the resolution time that agents are spending dealing with the situation, which actually makes the agent more productive because they're getting off the phone quicker and they're getting back onto another call. So there's a nice balance there. We did see a slight increase, but it was nowhere near anything that we were afraid of. So overall, this has been a very successful endeavor for us. We're not done yet. We've got a lot more ideas, and bouncing these off, as Andy will tell you, every week we get on a call, and I'm hitting them with new challenges and new ideas. And, you guys are stepping up to the mark, and we're looking forward to what else. This is the tip of the iceberg as far as I'm concerned. We've got a lot of options that we can do here, and we're looking forward to seeing how it can help our business.
Thanks, Damien. And yeah, just to reiterate a couple of things that you talked about. I mean, I think one of the keys has been that continuous engagement. So a standing cooperation and call to try to talk about, here are challenges, here are ways to solve it. Some of those have led to ideas that are good. Sometimes it shoots down ideas that aren't going to work. But it's just been a good process, I think, of bouncing off ideas and both sides being able to bring their expertise to trying to help address those issues. You know, one of the unique things that I mentioned at the beginning, that from an ISV's perspective, there are different challenges than a dealer faces. So, you know, a dealer can handle installing the Vigilix agent. They can handle installing that at every site. They just don't have the volume of customers that an ISV would be facing. So, you know, working with ISVs to figure out ways to automatically get the agent deployed and provisioned and set up is one of the areas that we kind of pride ourselves on and can do and have done successfully. So. Integration with ticketing systems, Damien, you mentioned that. So setting up the ability that we don't want to create a new system and, hey, now the agents have to go check their email and check their ticketing system, but working with the existing systems, trying to integrate the Vigilix data into CRM system or a ticketing system so that users aren't faced with having to go to multiple places to get data. And then ultimately, I think from an ISV's perspective, as opposed to something that might be of concern or of real interest to somebody in the reseller channel, is the ability to build something that is a solution around the technology and a branded solution around that technology, and to create a product, you taking advantage of the tool and the services and creating a bundled sellable solution. So I think those are some of the things that are very unique that an ISV faces that a dealer typically does not. So I'm going to jump in real briefly. I don't want to spend a lot of time on a demo, but I do want to show you guys the fact that this is not smoke. The products are out there, and Vigilix is one of those products to try to help bring these a tool to help move these variables, and Damien mentioned several of them. I'll just show you some of the techniques that I think are key. So let me just, real quickly, when I'm looking at this is the main portal. It's built for the support team to be able to see what customers are having problems, what priority those issues are, and be able to drill in and focus on those particular areas. So looking at this, I can see that this location, this customer, Burger Queen, has got a problem. It's a high priority issue that they're having. They have one high priority issue. I can also see that another customer, Buffalo Grill, has one issue, but it's a medium priority issue. It's not quite as critical for us to jump in on. So the idea behind this interface is these are the customers that are having problem, and then you have the ability to create views that let you focus in on certain areas. So this is where the Vigilix portal can be used to do these things. Obviously, we can also send these issues to a help ticketing system where workflow in that ticketing system can also be taken advantage of. So let's just kind of drive down looking at the interface and just want to show you some of those variables, how you can impact them. Well, first of all, looking at Buffalo Grill and going to drill down. I've drilled all the way down. In fact, let me just back up and show you. I drilled down. Buffalo Grill's a customer, and they have two locations, a Downtown West and a Church Street location. I can drill down into the Downtown West location and see, we've got two systems, a back office system and a terminal. And I have the ability to look at the history of events that have occurred. And this event, this critical service start, you'll notice the event occurred, and there was an automated action that was kicked off. Hey, restart this. And the net result was, within a minute later, the whole event was resolved. So a service was stopped. No person had got involved and went and started this. An automated action was kicked off to try to restart that service and get it resolved. Now, we have the history that occurred. We know it's occurring. We're not going to lose sight of the fact that is happening. But in terms of both the ability to lower support calls, lower time for calls, and increase customer satisfaction, the ability to do that automated fix is key, and it can solve problems fast. So looking at the views, the idea behind the views is to try to draw attention to these key areas. So the first one is the high priority alerts. Hey, I just want to see customers that have a high priority alert. And in this case, that's what we've set up. You could even narrow it down further. It could be, I want to see customers that only have credit card batch issues. Because when I come in the morning, I'm going to just march down the line of customers who are having a credit card batch issue. But in this particular case, drilling down into it, I can see there's a critical service alert. And drill down to the details, I can actually see which one is the actual service that's got the problem. And now a support person can say, first thing in the morning, I'm coming in, I've got a little bit of time, I've got a critical issue going on, I'm going to connect to that site, I'm going to get in, and I'm going to fix that service issue because this wasn't set up to be automated. Even better, if this wasn't something that they wanted to automate, but they looked at it, they could come in, and if they had the security rights to do so, they could initiate an action and automatically try to make a manual request. Hey, Vigilix agent, would you please restart this service for me? And so they could attempt to do that automatically or initiate that themselves as opposed to a built-in automated response. So that's the ability to kind of use the views to drill in on high priority issues. But mentioned one of the things is to take some of those extra time tasks, I'll call them. The things that, you know what, I'm sitting here, there's nothing specific no high priority thing for me to work on. I'm going to start driving into the things that are the important things to deal with to try to lower the amount of time or put out fires before they become huge fires, stop big problems. And in this particular case, Buffalo Grill, I can look at it and see Buffalo Bill, a disk space alert, it's the C drive. I can get details on that and see how much space. It's 6% free. So I can see the details on that, and when I have time, I can address that issue. Or, as I mentioned previously, maybe you automatically send that information to the customer. So as an example of that, if I look at the history here, we have a recommended reboot. And we would automatically send that information to the customer, and they'll eventually reboot. It might take them a day, a week, they might, whatever that time frame is, but that's not even something that we would necessarily have a support agent deal with. We wouldn't want to generate a help desk ticket saying, hey, you should reboot that customer's server, as opposed to put that in the customer's hands, let them do that, and try and avoid issues. The final one that I wanted to point out in the portal is this concept of having more information. So I'm going to go back and actually drill down and show you a couple of different elements. So I'm drilling down to this Downtown West location, and if I want to see details about this location, I can pull up information. I can see it has 4 drives. I can see details about the operating system, running Windows 7 Ultimate, the exact version, service pack that it's running. So I can see details about networking, and all of that kind of information is available through the portal. As Damien mentioned, can also feed that into another system if there's another place where the support team would go get their data. But likewise, it's not just about what's the current state of the system, what version of OS, what version of the point-of-sale product is out there. It's also what's changed or what's happened on that system recently. So if we drill down and just simply look at the history on this system, I can see that it's currently got the disk space alert issue. It's recently been rebooted at 8:58 this morning. Hey, there's been a recent application list changed, and that means that something in the add remove programs was changed. And I can see here that the security update for the Microsoft.NET Framework client was added to the add remove programs list. So new software was installed. I can see things where, hey, it was having CPU issues. Maybe part of the problem was because there was high CPU spikes during certain points of time. That was a little bit further ago. That was 3 days ago. So, but you have the details in front of you of things that have occurred, what's currently going on, things that have occurred, and simply don't have to going back to that previous phrase, play 20 questions to find out what's going on with the customer. And quite honestly, if it's something like the application list change, Windows updates getting applied, they may not even know that something changed. They may not even be aware of it and couldn't tell you if they did know. So I think it's very important to have that type of information in front of you. So once again, didn't want to spend a lot of time demoing the product as much as just to say the tools exist. We can work with organizations to get them to the point where they're taking advantage of these types of things quickly. And with that, Bradley, let's open it up. We don't have too much time, and we want to respect everyone's time, but I don't know if there are any questions.
We do have a couple of questions, and I will throw them out there very quickly and kind of cover them, maybe consolidate where we had a couple in the same area. But one was, what do you mean by monitoring? Can you give a deeper, a little brief discussion about what you mean with monitoring?
Wow, yeah, monitoring, boy, that's a good question, because that's a pretty broad topic. So to me, I look at it as two key things. You want to, well, maybe three key things. You want to monitor for exceptions, things that are simply wrong in an environment. It might be wrong and not overly critical. And I think disk space is an example. Monitoring disk space, hey, the right environment is for disk space to be above 10%. We want to know, and we want to monitor for when it goes below it. But monitoring is also about current state. So I want to monitor for data that is not necessarily a problem. It's just simply, it simply is version of the operating system. Well, you know what? It simply is Service Pack 1 of Windows 7 Ultimate. But knowing that is valuable, and monitoring for when that changes and making sure that that information is being conveyed back and available easily is important. And then there's other changes to the environment. So you might monitor for changes to services that are running, to the list of services, to the list of products that are installed on a system. So you might monitor it. You know, it's not just that a product was installed. Maybe things aren't working today because something was uninstalled, and it would be valuable to know that. So monitoring is really about knowing about exceptions in the environment and changes in the state. I don't know, Damien, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things I was going to say there is if any of the folks listening have challenges that they're looking to overcome, as long as there's a signature on the PC or some indicator that that event has happened or not happened, which is what you guys did, was we identified those to you, and then you configured the agent to look for those and then perform an action, no matter what it was. So as long as there's some evidence that it has happened or it's in a certain state and it changes, whatever it is that indicates a challenge for anyone, I know that Vigilix can actually go ahead and identify it first and then perform an action regardless of what that is, what that needs to be. So that was one of the nice things, is that as long as, and almost everything has a signature on the PC of some form or another.
Yeah, I've used the phrase frequently, if it can be digitally touched, we can monitor it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't think we've come up with one yet that we haven't had a solution to.
yep, I agree.
Got a quick one for you. Does this support international deployments?
Yes, the Vigilix agent has been it's been running on environments including different Windows OS environments. So the Vigilix agent is focused on the Windows operating system, whether that's a Win32, Win64, or a CE environment. But in terms of the OS, for instance, languages, no problems running on Chinese or Korean, and we have successfully run on multi-byte operating system environments.
Got it. Also, an example or how somebody might do large deployments to an existing installed customer base.
Well, so I'll throw out two ideas off the top of my head that are things that we've looked at doing or have done, and one would be rolling the agent into an existing update or making it part of an update of the product so that it would actually roll out as the product itself was updated. Obviously, that still involves manual effort, but if you make it part of the installation or an upgrade package, then it will ultimately get out there. It's probably going to be a little bit of a trickle. You have. I'm sure everyone's aware we can't exactly just push the software to push it to be installed over the internet to a remote system, because hopefully there are firewalls blocking that, and if there's not, somebody really needs to help somebody. So somebody within the enterprise does need to run something. So another scenario that we've seen done successfully has been to provide an interface for the end users and have them go to a website and get their agents and ask them, hey, would you run this on this system? And when they do that, they actually install it. And we've built in things that might, for instance, might discover, make sure you're being installed on a system that includes these services. Do not allow it to be installed on another system. So in every scenario, we've tried to get creative, but those are two ways. Damien, anything to add?
No, I was going to suggest the portal thing. One of the nice things that we experienced was the ability to. One of my prerequisites to Andy and his team was like, I want to reduce as much manual labor on this as possible. I want to make as much automation as possible. So once the installation happens, regardless of how that happens, if it's someone connecting in and downloading and running, or directing the customer to portal and downloading, everything else with regard to provisioning, authentication of the site, and the turning on of whatever it is you're monitoring, all of that needs to be automated. So even though that took away a lot of the perception of manual labor here for us, and we've been having great success with it. That automated process, so I don't need to go back and look and make sure that things are working. I trust that that's happening automatically, and any changes we push down to the existing base, as I say, all kick in. So,
yeah, I think to your point, Damien, that's critical if you have a large install base and you want to scale. Using manual labor to get everything installed everywhere and then manually configure and manually maintain just doesn't work. It might work for somebody who has, 100 or 500, even 1,000 systems that they're managing, but when you start getting into larger install bases, that's just not, that just doesn't work. And a key area where we want people to look at us and say, hey, help us solve that problem.
All right, I tell you what, we've actually gone a couple of minutes over the allotted time, and what I'll do is just let everybody know, because several people have asked as well, we will be sending out a copy of the presentation as well as a copy of the calculator if you're interested, along with the copy of the videos of the presentation that will be posted online as well. So what I would ask specifically in the short term, if you're interested in the calculator, this is Bradley. My email address is on the screen. Just shoot me that request and I can get you that over quickly. Also, if you're interested in a free trial of Vigilix, we'll be more than happy to get that set up with you, work with you through the training, even do a couple of deployments with you to be sure you understand the configuration process, and that it will be monitoring reported in the way that you're looking to support your customers. So again, greatly appreciate everybody's time this afternoon. Appreciate your attention and participation. We had a great turnout for this, and we will be having future webinars covering additional topics, and definitely would like to take a second to thank Damien for his time and providing his expertise today. And with this, I will say goodbye to everybody, and again, thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. And thank you, Damien.